Dear students, today we will be understanding a special important topic which has a relevance in the present day: ozone depletion. This triatomic molecule O3 will form an envelope, a shield, an umbrella around the globe and protecting the human race from the harmful hazardous effects of ultraviolet radiation. I was explaining you that this ozone is an umbrella, a protective sheath around the earth. It protects the human race, human beings, the living organisms on this planet from the hazardous effects of ultraviolet radiation. If you look at this particular picture, after the visible light, we can see the three different types of ultraviolet radiations named as UVA, UVB and UVC. Ozone layer does not allow the penetration of ultraviolet radiation whose wavelength is lesser than B. And you can see that the categorization of the ultraviolet rays based on the wavelength. Where exactly is this ozone layer which is protecting us from the UV radiation? The Earth's total atmosphere around, as you can see, starts with troposphere and then the ozone layer and then the stratosphere, the ionosphere, the exosphere, which are of course not depicted there. But troposphere is the area within which entire living world survives, lives, and above that is the ozone layer. That means the ozone layer is beneath or below the stratosphere. You can call that particular layer as ozonosphere. Now, let us talk about ozone, which is divided into two types, like the good ozone and the bad ozone. When ozone is present at that level, that altitude, that's a good ozone because it does not allow the UV radiation. But the ozone which is formed in the troposphere is certainly very harmful to the living organisms. Let us now understand how ozone is bad, especially the troposphere, and how does it affect and how does it impact the plants as well as the animals. How can we explore the idea of bad ozone? First of all, in the troposphere, how is it formed, the ozone, which we are calling it as the bad ozone? To my left side, there is a pictorial representation where you can understand that the formation of O3 in the troposphere is certainly a product of pollution. We can see several chemical reactions going on, and ultimately there is formation of ozone in the troposphere. So ozone is a secondary pollutant released into the atmosphere, that is the troposphere. What could be the effect of ozone when released into the troposphere? There is a sequence for this. At lower concentration, ozone would certainly affect the plants. We know that within the leaf there is an area where photosynthesis takes place, and we call it as the mesophyll. The photosynthetic mesophyll, the cells are certainly affected. Ozone reacts with the unsaturated hydrocarbons and will generate the water soluble free radicals. This particular change would trigger peroxidative processes within the cells, and the parts which are vulnerable to this particular effect is cell membranes. So at lower concentration, if this would be the impact of ozone in the troposphere, imagine at higher concentrations what could be the effect of ozone in the troposphere. Troposphere, a very vital region for the survival of the living organisms. If it contains the bad ozone, it also affects animals. The respiratory systems of animal world could be targeted by the bad ozone. The effects of ozone which we were understanding, not only the respiratory systems, the eyes can also be impacted by the bad ozone. It could act like a eye irritant. What about the crops? What about the vegetation? The presence of ozone, the bad ozone, can cause the whitish or the brown coloration on the leaves, termed as the flecking of leaves. What is the other side of the story? The good ozone. The good ozone is certainly the one which protects the human beings. I was in the previous pictures showing you that it prevents the entry of rays, UV rays, whose wavelength is lesser than B. Suppose this UV, the good ozone, UV, if you talk the interrelationship, a good ozone certainly acts like a barrier and protects this world. The next thing is, let us talk about ozone depletion and how does that happen. What are the various channels which are responsible for the ozone depletion? What are the various sources for the ozone depleting substances? In fact, our topic is at the moment ozone depletion. If you look at this sequence here, the various channels from which we can expect the chlorofluorocarbons, which are ozone depleting substances. The sources can be spraying cans, refrigerator, air conditioners, etc. So these are all the various sources for the release of chlorofluorocarbons. So CFCs, the chlorofluorocarbons, are responsible for ozone depletion. Let us now understand what is the chemical activity which takes place at the higher altitude near the ozonosphere, and that leads to the removal of the erosion of the ozone and affecting the human beings. Let us see the chemical activity which is taking place near the ozonosphere. As these chlorofluorocarbons released from the various sources ascend up into the higher levels of troposphere. So let's see how this chemical reaction goes on at that region called ozonosphere. The chlorofluorocarbons available will be impacted by the UV radiation, and the chloride will be released away in the form of the chlorine atom. A very active radical. It reacts with ozone and of course in the presence of UV radiation to form this oxygen and chlorine monoxide. This particular reaction can also be seen on the picture here. See the chlorine, which is free, reacting with the triatomic ozone and forming the chlorine monoxide and the release of oxygen. Probably at that altitude, the oxygen which is free remains as such. And this chlorine monoxide will react with another nascent oxygen which is released because of the action of Cl, and these two will form the O2 and the Cl will be separated, and the Cl which is released away here, so ClO, the O here, another O which come from another process, same thing will happen many times there continuously, so we can expect more number of ClOs. So the oxygen, the single monoatomic together combining to form the O2, again with the release of the Cl. This particular process, again Cl is released, you can see there the Cl is released again, and the Cl again reacts with O3, again the triatomic ozone is becoming oxygen and chlorine monoxide, and many such chlorine monoxides are available, and again the chlorine is released away and the nascent oxygen combines with another to form the O2. So this particular reaction continues, and see the chlorine, the chloride there, it is not at all undergoing any change. This clearly indicates that the Cl is acting like a catalyst. Let's review this important change which is responsible for the ozone depletion at Ozonosphere. Now let us review the important activity which has taken place at Ozonosphere. The effect of UV on chlorofluorocarbons, first step, the release of Cl reacting with O3 and O3 converted into O2 plus ClO. This ClO will be many in number, and the ClO will be divided, fragmented further, and the Cl will be released away. The nascent oxygen, the O and another one together will form the oxygen. It means the ozone is continuously converted because of the Cl. Once the Cl is available there, it continuously acts like a catalyst and is primarily responsible for the ozone depletion, and this will certainly decrease the thickness of ozone, and that is what is called the ozone hole. Not in a real sense it's a perforation, it's actually the thinness. For example, let's see what you exactly understand by the meaning of the word ozone hole. Suppose this is the thickness of the layer, and suppose it becomes like this, very thin layer. You can call that particular area like the ozone hole. The hazardous effects of UV on the living organisms. We have just now seen how the Cl can cause a cascading effect of continuously removing the ozone and allowing the harmful UV into the Earth's atmosphere, that is the troposphere. Once the UV enters into the troposphere, it is certainly carcinogenic, causing skin cancers. It can affect the DNA, the genes, and probably cause the mutations. It can also affect the crops and the vegetation. Let's see some more effects of the UV because of the ozone holes. Can cause skin cancer, cataract, We all know cataract is a condition related to the eye, which makes vision improper, and it also affects plant growth. The phytoplankton growth is also affected, and the biochemicals cycles are also affected. And other than the cataract, we can also get affected by snow blindness. Let us see some of the features of snow blindness. Let's now see the various characteristics of snow blindness. The snow blindness, the symptoms occur 8 to 12 hours after exposure. Eyes feel dry and irritated, then feel as if they are full of sand. Moving or blinking becomes extremely painful. Exposure to light hurts the eyes. Eyelids may swell, eye redness and excessive tearing. Treatment: use cold compresses and stay in dark environment and do not rub eyes. Cataract, snow blindness and permanent impairment of cornea are some of the major effects of the UV on the human eye. Apart from snow blindness, let us recall some of the diseases, conditions which end with the word blindness. One of them is the night blindness, vitamin A deficiency, color blindness, snow blindness are some of the words, and of course all the three are unrelated to each other. Night blindness related to vitamin A, color blindness is related to the genetic disorder wherein the required pigments are not synthesized in the retinal cells. The snow blindness is due to the effect of UV on human eye. We have seen all through our journey the various serious effects of ozone depletion. Countries did participate after understanding the harmful, the deleterious effects of ozone depletion and the entry of the UV. Several countries have understood the deleterious effects of ozone depletion and have laid down several roadmaps aiming at reducing the release of chlorofluorocarbons and such other ozone depleting substances. In the year 1987, the Montreal Protocol aimed at this particular aspect, valid till 1989. The very idea of this protocol is to minimize the release of chlorofluorocarbons and other ozone depleting substances into the atmosphere. So this brings us to the end of a small subunit which highlights the ozone, good ozone, bad ozone, the release of chlorofluorocarbons and how the chlorine atom behaves like a catalyst in depleting the ozone, the entry of the UV rays into the troposphere and affecting human beings and also the plant world, enhancing or accelerating the aging process, being carcinogenic, affecting the human genes, causing cataract, permanently damaging the cornea, snow blindness, etc. And finally, different countries in their own angle, in their own dimensions, have put forth several protocols aiming at reducing the release of chlorofluorocarbons and other ozone depleting substances. Hope the aim of this important area of ecology is understood by one and all, and finally the ozone hope will be restored to its normalcy. There is an important observation, that is the formation of ozone holes in Antarctica. This particular phenomenon is due to the polar vortex. Let's see the picture where we can understand the ozone hole. Look at this picture, which makes us understand, hope we realize how there is ozone hole formation at this area, the Antarctica, especially during the August to October. Finally, how is ozone measured? In what units is it measured? Ozone is always measured in Dobson unit. Let's understand the definition of Dobson unit. I've written it here. You can see as you move from the ground to the top of the atmosphere, it's the thickness of ozone in the column of air from ground to the top of atmosphere. So from the ground level to the top of the atmosphere, the thickness of ozone in the column of air is an important definition which explains the Dobson unit. Let's review again. The thickness of ozone in the column of air from ground to the top of atmosphere. The last segment of this chapter, ecology, after talking about air pollution, water pollution, the effects of ozone depletion, etc., nature is a wonderful source for multiple products, and it takes time to build up something, and it takes very less time to destroy. Probably due to industrialization, population explosion, and technology at its best, the soil, the vegetation, the atmosphere, in all angles there is a severe exploitation, overutilization, and that leads to a very irreversible change and affects the ecological equilibrium. Let us understand what are the various reasons for the degradation of the natural and nature and natural resources. Soil erosion and desertification. As I was emphasizing on an important fact, it takes years for the making of a very fertile soil naturally, and it takes certainly a very short duration for the soil erosion and the depletion of the valuable upper layer of the soil. Not only just the pollutants can impact the quality of the soil, but even other human anthropogenic activities can also impact the quality of the soil. Let's see. There's a picture which is clearly makes us understand that it is like over cultivation, probably many times in a year, over cultivation, unrestricted grazing and deforestation. And we all are aware how serious it could be, how deleterious it could be when the deforestation continues without any break. The fourth one, poor irrigation practices. Irrigation practices is something which is a very activity to be done very systematically, a planned, a design activity giving you the right product. But when we understand the activity as poor irrigation practices, over a period of time it could result in the arid patches of land. Let us see what is this water logging and salinity. So we were waterlogging and salinity. This particular 2 points can make us understand what a waterlogging is. In an agricultural land, when the soil pores within the root zone of the crops get saturated with the subsoil water, the air circulation within the soil pores gets totally stopped. This phenomenon is termed as waterlogging. The waterlogging makes the soil alkaline in character and the fertility of the land is totally destroyed and the yield of the crop is reduced. This picture will tell you or give you an idea as to what is waterlogging. You can see large amount of water not drained away, just stagnated. The salinity. Waterlogging can lead to salinity. When there is waterlogging, as you've seen a picture before, the salts are slowly drawn up and they form a thin crust. The formation of this salts as a thin crust on the soil will affect the roots. They will be very detrimental to the roots and finally to the plants. So waterlogging and salinity certainly reduce the total produce. Let's get into another subtopic called deforestation. Supporting afforestation is something which is very beneficial because it gives the invaluable oxygen which makes us all survive. Deforestation. The diverse world, the biodiversity certainly is important for the living world. Here, according to estimates, 40% of the forest area has already been depleted, removed because of deforestation in tropics and about 1% in the temperate. We are all aware of the fact that tropics and subtropical regions are very diverse in terms of the living world. And once these are removed, probably the plants or the animals have to face the threat of extinction. And let's see through the journey of this in the century. At the beginning, the total coverage was around 30%, and at the end of the century, it shrunk to about 19.4. When the estimate itself is so alarming, we can certainly imagine a world probably in the coming days where the plants, if not available, the world's balance would certainly tilt. Let us now study one of the important reasons for deforestation in some parts of India. The � cultivation. It's a method of cultivation in which a given forest area is cut and burnt. You can see that picture here. They are all cut down, they are burnt, and once it is cleared, probably this burnt product can be used as fertilizer. And once this area is cleared, the vegetation is promoted. Now, what could be the effect of this? You are already removing the already well settled plants in a given area and again regrowing some other type of plant. See the time lag, lot of time lag, because already well grown provides oxygen and is important for several things, and once you remove them, burn and again rebuild the total thing, the very quality of atmosphere gets distorted. So � cultivation is something where you remove the plants, grow the vegetation, and maybe those who are into this leave that area for natural growth, which takes many years, and move away to some other, again redo the same activity. So what is already built is destroyed, and vegetation is grown, exploited, the area is left vacant, and over a period of time naturally the plants regrow. So certainly � cultivation is harmful to the very balance of nature. � cultivation, as we have learnt, is certainly a part of human activity which is leading to deforestation. What is the only way to come out of this very destructive activity which the human being is unknowingly doing? The deforestation should be supplemented by a very positive work called reforestation. Reforestation probably is the only remedy to this evil activity called deforestation. Promoting the plantations, cultivating different varieties of plants, keeping in mind the biodiversity of the area, will only give a positive, healthy, ecological balance, and probably the hydrological cycles, the oxygen levels, temperature, all will be back to normal. Let's do a case study. In this case study, which is like a beautiful story with a wonderful summary, and the essence is certainly an eye-opener. In the year 1731, King of Jodhpur wanted to construct or build a palace. He wanted a wood for his construction of the palace and ordered his obedient servants to cut down the plants. The lady by name Amrita Devi, belonging to the Vaishnav community, showed exemplary courage in stopping this deforestation or cutting down of trees. She was ready to sacrifice her life to protect these magnificent creatures of the earth. King, without any second thought, has ordered his obedient servants to kill her. She was ready to sacrifice her life for nature, and herself, her 3 daughters, and many more who wanted to protect plants, the trees, were killed. This is something, an extraordinary story. It's unbelievable, and probably no way in the history of the world the story is heard. Government of India has instituted an award for people who show dedication and commitment in protecting nature, and that is Amrita Devi Bishnoi Wildlife Protection Award. This event, which has taken place as we are passing through the corridors of Indian history, is an eye-opener to all those people who aim at exploiting nature for their personal benefit. The summary of this beautiful story is: protect nature, nature will protect you. After understanding the great story of Amrita Devi, let's see another event which has taken place. In the year 1974, in the region called Garhwal Himalayas, the local woman hugged the trees so that they are not cut down by the contractors who wanted to use the wood. This is a case of enormous commitment towards nature and love for nature. Now, after these events of Amrita Devi and then the event called Chipko movement. The government in the year 1980 has promoted this joint forest management. This is a collaborated work with the local communities. So when the local communities are involved in this process, which is very constructive and enables us to see the diversity of plants and animals in future, and the positive results would be, as these communities come together, protect the nature for their benefit, they can use some of the forest produce for their survival and livelihood. This brings us to the end of a topic which aims at understanding harmful effects of deforestation, waterlogging, salinity, and reforestation, and a case study wherein we were understanding the exemplary courage of Amrita Devi and the bravery of the woman who belonged to that Garhwal Himalayas area, and finally the joint forest management aiming at making the world very green. Let us review some of the possible questions from this area. Which one of the following acts and promotes, or you can say the word promotes, which of the following promotes ozone depletion? Oxygen. Oxygen is a gas vital for respiratory activity, and oxygen is formed only when that O3 is split by the Cl. You all know Cl plus O3 we get the ClO and oxygen. So ozone becomes oxygen at the higher levels below the stratosphere, that is near ionosphere, and oxygen is a very vital gas released from the plants. So it plays no role in ozone depletion. The second one, iron. Iron is an important component of the living systems. Iron is seen as a component of hemoglobin, the cytochromes, and that has nothing to do with atmosphere. Chlorofluorocarbons. This is what the topic is related to. Chlorofluorocarbons released from the spraying cans, the refrigerators, the air conditioners, etc. And these chlorofluorocarbons ascend up, and because of UV radiation, the chlorine from the chlorofluorocarbon will be separated, and that is the one which acts like a catalyst in depleting the ozone. So the answer would be chlorofluorocarbons. What about amino acids? Amino acids are the organic molecules formed in a plant body. They are also consumed by the animal world. So amino acids are not related to the ozone depletion. So out of the four options, the question is, which one of the following promotes ozone depletion? I forgot the word. Which one of the following? Okay. Which one of the following promotes ozone depletion? The answer would be chlorofluorocarbon. The second question is something very vital. This is concerning the sequence involved in the depletion of the ozone. Before we look at this question, let's diagrammatically recall the idea. UV radiation and chlorofluorocarbons, the release of chlorine, and this chlorine reacting with the triatomic ozone, and we get this ClO and the release of oxygen. Now, this ClO will be releasing away the chlorine, Cl atom, chloride atom, and then finally this oxygen will combine with O to become the O2. So, in this particular process, we can see that again and again the chlorine atom will be recycled, acts like a catalyst, accelerates the ozone depletion. So, after this basic concept, let us see how to tackle this question. Now, there are A, B, C, D given here. The A, chlorofluorocarbons, because of the UV radiation, the Cl is removed from it, and Cl reacting with O3 and then ClO plus O2, and here ClO will be actually breaking up, and this O and O will form the O2. Again, the Cl is ready for another round of attack on the O3. And the last is release of CFC. If this has to be put in a sequence, the very first thing is release of CFC is the first one. So, it starts with D, and then CFC due to UV will be experiencing the removal of Cl. See the second A, CFC, because of UV, the Cl is segregated from that, and the Cl is reacting with the O3, and we get ClO, chlorine monoxide, and the oxygen. And here the ClO will actually lose its O, and that O reacts with another atom of oxygen, and there is formation of oxygen, and this Cl is once again, see here the Cl is once again ready to show its effect on the O3 molecule, causing the ozone depletion. So, the correct sequence will be A, B, okay, A, B, C. After C, D is wrong, because once the depletion begins, you cannot say release. It all starts with release. So, if you search for D and B, no, D and B not possible, because after D, directly you won't get the Cl unless and until the Cl is separated from the UV. So, this is also wrong. A and B, and after that C, it's okay, and after that is D, and again ultimately that is release of CFC here, that is also wrong, somewhere at the end of the sequence. The correct sequence would be the fourth one. Look at the sequence. D, release of chlorofluorocarbons, and A, CFC giving off the Cl, then B, Cl reacting with ozone giving the chlorine monoxide and oxygen, again the C, ClO losing its O, and the oxygen atoms combine to form O2, and the Cl is again ready to continue its activity again. So, again see this B, why B again? Let's see why B again. Actually, the free Cl will once again show that same repetition of the chemical reactions. So, the answer is D, A, B, C and B again, because of the Cl which is free. The question number 3. In the course of our study related to ozone, we have categorized the ozone into two. One is good ozone, other is the bad ozone. The good ozone is the one which is at the below the stratosphere, called the ionosphere, and the bad ozone is the one which is present within the troposphere. So, here the options are which ozone is irritant and can cause respiratory problems. So, the moment you read this line, respiratory problems, normally organisms live on the globe, so respiratory activity happens on the land, in water, so it has to be troposphere. So, troposphere, the ozone in the troposphere is affecting organisms, so it should be a bad ozone. Okay, bad ozone is one option. Good ozone is wrong, because the ozone which is present at higher Altitude is of good use. It prevents the entry of UV. So good ozone is incorrect answer. Bad ozone affects the human respiratory system. In fact, it affects the vegetation and crops too. And third one, ozone in troposphere. That's what we are talking. The bad ozone is the ozone in troposphere. And the fourth option is both 2 and 3. So this is the right answer. Both 2 and 3. All the above cannot be a right answer if given, because good ozone is very useful, and bad ozone and ozone in troposphere. And we know the ozone is at times a secondary pollutant, and the secondary pollutant is the bad ozone, and that is the one which is in the troposphere. So 2 and 3 right answer. So both 2 and 3, that is bad ozone in the troposphere, acts as an eye irritant and can cause respiratory problems. Question number 4. Which of the following are secondary pollutants? See, when you read such questions, see the word R is already mentioned. So 2 or 3 or maybe all the 4 options can be correct because the plural is used. Oxides of sulfur, oxides of nitrogen, ozone, peroxyacetyl nitrate and the sulfurous acid. Amongst these 5 options, let's see the first one. Oxides of sulfur are always the primary pollutants. When these oxides of sulfur reacts with the water vapor, forming the sulfurous acid, SO2 reacting with H2O, giving you H2SO3, that is sulfurous acid, that becomes a secondary pollutant. And oxides of nitrogen, again primary pollutants, and ozone is a secondary pollutant. Ozone is a secondary pollutant formed in the troposphere, and that's bad ozone. Peroxyacetyl nitrate is also a secondary pollutant. And finally, the sulfurous acid is also a secondary pollutant. So among the list A, B, C, D, E, the answer would be C is a secondary pollutant, that is D, peroxyacetyl nitrate, and the third one, this E, sulfurous acid, is also a secondary pollutant. So the answer will be C, D and E, and that is the third option. And fourth, C and E only will be incorrect, because we have to see the complete set of secondary pollutants. It is C, D and E. Let us see the final question, which focuses on Zoom cultivation. Which one of the following affect hydrological cycle? So we all know hydrological cycle involves the water vapor, and look at the options here. Suppose I write in the option deforestation. Reforestation. Instead of reforestation, because D is something which affects the hydrological cycle. Overgrazing, deforestation, overgrazing, and then we can say reforestation, or we can say the word 𝗓𝗏. And finally, both 1 and 2. So I have used the word 𝗓𝗏 instead of the terminology called reforestation. So if you look at this 1, 2, 3 and 4, hydrological cycle is affected by several things like deforestation, the global warming, all will have a very detrimental effect on the hydrological cycle. Since our topic is revolving around plantation, overgrazing, excessive cultivation, etc., we will take those words. Deforestation affects hydrological cycle, overgrazing, in fact overcultivation also affects hydrological cycle, because the plants are being removed or substituted, or like Zoom cultivation, cut and thrown away for their own natural growth, and third one is 𝗓𝗏𝗧. 𝗓𝗏𝗧 is a positive way of looking at the nature. It's a nature supporting activity. So 3 cannot be the right one. The answer can be both 1 and 2 can affect the hydrological cycle amongst the 4. The fourth option will be the right one. So dear students, in this segment of ecology, where we were already learning about air pollution and water pollution, etc., the last few segments include ozone depletion. In this area, please focus on chlorofluorocarbon, good ozone, bad ozone, the differences, and once the ozone hole is formed, how the UV enters into the troposphere. Recollect the terms snow blindness, cataract, effect permanent damage to cornea. Do not go wrong with other types of blindness here, because snow blindness is exclusively related to this topic. Night blindness, color blindness are not related here at all. They are unrelated. And improper management, that area, deforestation, waterlogging, salinity, and overcultivation, grazing. And recollect the words called June cultivation, where burning is a part of it. After that, 𝗪𝗏𝗪𝗏, a case study. And finally, the 𝗕𝗂𝗍 movement and joint forest management.